Hello, thank you everybody for taking part of today's event and attending it with us. For our last presentation, we will be learning about the benefits of creating a no-code digital process beyond visualization to create new revenue and value for manufacturers. Please welcome from FactoryBucket, Rami Kaawach.
Thank you, Chad. A quick second to get myself set up here with my screen share.
Can see you. It's a little blurry, but can see you. Video.
Yeah, unfortunately, in a technology symposium, my camera quality is not the greatest here, but can you all see my screen for the presentation?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Just a quick second and we can get started. I do want to thank everybody who's joined us today, of course. I know I get the luck of being the last spot in a long day, I'm sure, filled with good information. But thank you to Lambton College for putting this together. I think, every year, these symposiums grow. We all get to learn something new. And connect on new and exciting technologies. Today, as Chad mentioned, I'm going to be your speaker, Rami Kaawach, and talking about no code in the manufacturing industry. I am going to try and condense this information without going into too much overload. But really, I want us to focus on the impact of no code and just how brilliant of a tool it is for manufacturers. And this really should be the takeaway, not just for those in the manufacturing industry, but for anybody looking at new software technologies. But just using Microsoft Teams, could I get a show of raised hands if anyone's familiar with no-code processes? Excellent, Chad. Thank you. So it's hopefully going to be a great learning experience for all of us. Before I dive into it, I do want to introduce a little about myself and the background of FactoryBucket and our company. I'm the lead no-code application developer. I work directly with manufacturers to build no-code software solutions and usher them into the digital era. I've been doing this with FactoryBucket since its inception in 2017 and moving manufacturers to digitization is really what our philosophy has always been. So as a local company here in Southwestern Ontario, we started off with mid to small size manufacturers and grew our partnerships with Fortune 500 companies like General Dynamics in recent years. And a lot of this is thanks to no-code principles. Many of us at FactoryBucket do come from manufacturing backgrounds, and we saw a major problem in technology adoption for manufacturers. And really what it came down to is manufacturers are very much so stuck in 20th century legacy technology. Often this is in the form of either legacy ERP or MRP systems, but also in more old school ways, like Excel spreadsheets, paper documentation, things that have worked, but have not worked efficiently. Now, before we jump into what is no code, I do want to mention the landscape for manufacturers. And I'm sure at this point, for all of us involved here, we've heard the term Industry 4.0 many, many times over the years. And I'm sure, a lot of us have seen amazing theories and technologies come out of Industry 4.0. And while undoubtedly amazing these advancements have been across several sectors, the reality that a lot of people are facing, especially for manufacturers, is that Industry 4.0 is very much so out of reach. The leap to AI and automation, which may be accessible to larger enterprises who have the resources to experiment with machine learning or augmented reality or advanced AI robotics, that's available for them. But there is a large portion of enterprises, manufacturers, and different organizations across many industries that are just locked out of this arena of digital advancement. And this is because of resource constraints and the kind of future nature of Industry 4.0. So there's a long way before we go, before we see AI and automation happening on a very scalable level. And this is why no code is so exciting. And I will answer the question is, what is no code? But really, as a quick snapshot, it's a powerful software building method that is here now, and most importantly, accessible to all manufacturers, regardless of their size or digital maturity. So this is true Industry 4.0 coming into reality. So of course, again, million-dollar question, what is no-code development? You'll often hear interchangeable words, no-code, low-code, but we're going to focus specifically on no-code. And this is a new method of building custom software applications. We specialize in it for manufacturers, but for everyone else, it's building custom applications that are done in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost of traditional developers. Our previous presenter mentioned they have a limited knowledge of coding, as do I, when I first came into this industry, and this is exactly who no code is for. It's rapid application development done on a visual platform. And these platforms allow manufacturers to build workflows and to build full applications using simple drag and drop methodologies. These applications can be built for enterprises without any knowledge of traditional coding, because no code doesn't require any coding, I guess, hence the name no code, right? One of the best ways I like to visualize the benefit of no code for any chess aficionados out here, it really is a checkmate in 2 moves instead of 4. Manufacturers in different industries are stuck with having to depend on either out-of-box software or development cycles that require hundreds of hours in writing and testing lines of code. With the emergence of no code, this can be done in half the time, and again, with no coding experience. So the benefits to this are numerous. I do want to point out a few things that we've seen manufacturing specific, and this is necessary to mention because it's spoken a lot in the conversation of Industry 4.0. And often when you hear Industry 4.0 and ERP mentioned in the same sentence, a statistic that keeps coming into that conversation is the failure rate of software implementations, and especially during digital transformation initiatives. For those not familiar with manufacturing, the industry, the stats in manufacturing hover just north of 60% of failure rates when implementing software. This is also industry applicable. So those numbers are out there, very easily searchable. But we know there's a high chance of software failure for businesses, and this is critical to their survival to be able to deploy software and deploy it without losing business. So no code emerges as that technology that minimizes the risk of software failures. It mitigates the loss of abandoned software projects that we see time and time again. And what it does is it puts the control of software building in the hands of manufacturers or in the hands of business owners, regardless of industries. We eliminate the need for expensive software vendors and the need for third-party off-the-shelf solutions that are not tailored to realistic workflows. And again, realistic workflows across any industry. These out-of-box softwares expect people to alter or leave out parts of their workflow just to fit into this piece of software for a handful of benefits. Whereas with no code, if you can think the logic of the application, then the application can likely be built. And this is why it aligns so well with the manufacturing industry. It's because manufacturing operations are often based on a logical sequence of processes. And if you follow that logical sequence, it can be digitally replicated using no code. So the power really in no code development is putting the build of softwares, the power of building that software in the hands of stakeholders who run the operations. And this is transformative. When you have your subject matter experts directly involved and, more importantly, understanding how to build the software they're going to use to advance their projects or advance their businesses. So the statistics that we're seeing on screen here, not surprising by any means, especially when we consider how beneficial it is to have the people who are experts at running a business also be the ones overseeing the build of their own software applications and projects. So we'll call these stats out quickly here. The no-code market as of 2021, and this is reported by Forrester, has seen $21 billion in spending. Actually, other reports are estimating this is going to jump to $125 billion within the next 5 years. No-code platforms, and this is a very interesting statistic put forth by Gartner, they're anticipating it's going to account for 65% of application builds. And that's a very big number across several different industries. And of course, the growth rate of no-code marketing, coming into, or the no-code market, apologies, coming into 2024 is pulling well ahead of the growth rate of traditional enterprise applications. And these statistics are great, and it's wonderful to see the numbers. The question I often ask myself, especially Industry 4.0, why are we seeing these increases now? And especially with no code that has been around for some time, all of a sudden it's seeing an uptick. So we'll answer that question of why now. And it does come down to that topic of digital transformation. We know it is critical for any business or organization, and it doesn't matter if you're in commercial or education or healthcare, we know it's critical that you have some sort of digital transformation initiative. The people we interact with are often now depending on digital platforms, and pushing forward on digital is no longer a conversation of maybe in the future, but it's now a conversation of how soon can we do it. So that's why we're seeing this uptick. When asked, so an interesting response we've heard from manufacturers as to what's most important in their digital transformation initiatives, one thing that often pops up is being able to improve existing capabilities and promote agility and innovation through transformation. And innovation extends to both product and customer services, as well as internal processes. But we know innovation is difficult to come by, and it's because enterprises have limited resources to execute on these projects. And yet, at the same time, they are under pressure to do more with less and deliver. Manufacturers are fighting to streamline technology processes. They're expected to become leaner. They're expected to deliver on new tech that drives better business insights and still maintain continuous improvement. And the truth is, they just, often don't have the capacity to do so at the same speed of changing markets and customer demands. We'll take a look at examples, undoubtedly, but it's been proven, those that can adapt quickly and those that can withstand the stresses of the market are the ones that see growth. It's an obvious statement, but one definitely worth calling out. And it brings up a question of resilience, organizational resilience in the age of technology. Do different organizations have the capacity to be resilient enough to adapt and anticipate changes in the market and at the same time remain competitive? And again, this this extends across multiple industries. The exchange of information, you can go from education, theory, right to manufacturing. That speed and the platform on which you can deliver information is going to be the deciding factor on if anybody is going to pick up on that information. So being able to adapt and change is absolutely integral. And we know technology advancement is critical, but often the question comes up is who's there to deliver? And IT departments are having a hard time doing this, often because they're reactive and in firefighting mode. This is not due to a lack of skills with IT professionals, but it's worth calling out that the talent pool for IT is shrinking. And not only that, but the talent pool for manufacturing and the availability of labor is also shrinking. And the situation is unique for manufacturing, especially when you're talking about sourcing developers for manufacturing processes. And this can be applied to other industries as well. But for manufacturing specifically, if you're bringing on a software vendor or if you're bringing on third-party developers or contractors, you want ones who have knowledge of the manufacturing industry, and that pool of talent is very small. So what teams tend to have, especially in manufacturing plants, that we see time and time again, is the small to mid-sized teams usually have one or two IT people. Those people are overloaded with situations, and they can't deliver on solutions. Actually, there was a Forrester report, I believe, came out in 2019 that took a survey of IT professionals asking what is the biggest obstacle in digital transformation, and they cited the inability to deliver solutions as fast as the business needs it. And it's no surprise IT teams are burdened with massive backlogs. Technology changes fast, organizational priorities change fast, and they're meant to keep up and innovate at the same time. And again, this backlog and this inability to really rely on IT teams fully leads to another obstacle, which is a misalignment between IT and stakeholders. And the lack of alignment does hurt digital transformation. What tends to happen in organizations that do not have a solid technology base or do not have a platform to deliver on technologies is an inconsistent model of digital transformation, one that fails to balance the need to maintain existing IT backlogs and implement new technologies. And what we see more and more are scattered improvements, right? Small IT projects or small digital innovation projects that appear and then disappear with no real impact. The benefits are so siloed in different areas that there's no collective benefit to the organization itself. I do quickly want to point out an interesting response by manufacturers in a study published by the Research Center of Production Management and Engineering in Valencia that's highlighted in this figure below. And these are direct responses to the problems we're speaking about. The first stat in the study showed that 67% of manufacturing respondents said the top benefit of no code was that it accelerated digital transformation. In this, at the top of the presentation, we spoke about the reality of Industry 4.0 and if we're soon to that. And no code really is, and we can see this response by manufacturers, allowing industries and allowing organizations to digitally transform at such a rapid rate. A close second and third here are using no code to increase business responsiveness and then reducing dependency on IT teams and hard to hire skills. And this goes hand in hand with shortening development times on new technologies. The speed of business needs arising is being met with no code development. These new software platforms coming out and applications being built are very organic. And that's what they provide to different organizations. It's an organic system that adapts to organizational growth. So in a time where it's crucial for manufacturers to adapt to changing markets, we know no-code provides them freedom to pivot with their market, and it delivers results extremely fast. So it's a very powerful tool. We'll move into, now that we're talking about digital transformation, we can get more into the specifics of digital transformation and really how no-code ties into this and ties into some of the key things manufacturers are looking for when it comes to either generating new revenue or finding ways to streamline. One thing that is touted by many manufacturers and becoming more and more commonplace is transitioning to the cloud as a first step in digitization. A few years ago, this was difficult. Manufacturers had a very hard time accepting the idea of their data existing on any sort of cloud. Now it's almost the entry tool to begin automating processes and begin digital initiatives. The initial cost to build and maintain web-based cloud platforms on no-code is minimal, and it's perfect. And again, this goes back to accessibility of technology. It's perfect for these small and mid-sized manufacturers who don't have the massive budgets to embark on these crazy digital environment changes. And then even then, for those that are not starting from a base of no technology, no-code still adapts and allows integration with current API systems. And I mention this because another big issue, and we'll touch on this as well, is siloing data. So what we see often with manufacturers is as new technology gets rolled out, it has a hard time speaking to the other systems. And now you have 4 or 5 different data sets and none of it is coalescing. And this is such a problem for manufacturers because you're losing very important business insights. No code is perfect because it does allow integrations, some more advanced than others without a doubt, and some that do require IT teams, especially if you're talking about integration tie-ins to actual machinery. But even then, no code leaves this open ability to do something as simple as Excel dumps that can just be pulled off machine systems. So very versatile. And it takes away that idea that, if you're introducing software or if you're introducing new technology, everything else will fall by the wayside. This works as a perfect bridge to gap existing technologies in different organizations. But one of the most important things, and it's really the third point, is scalability and scaling rapidly. So we're talking about micro and macro app re-architecturing. Making updates to a system to further streamline processes with no code is extremely easy. And if you look at previous, legacy systems, making small or major changes to the system comes with a lot of risks and a lot of costs, dealing with consultants, dealing with updates, dealing with downtime and retraining. No code just it allows such flexibility that the smallest change, and we'll get into the detail of why these are so powerful, but it does allow these very minor changes as well as major app re-architecturing without involving extra costs. It really is just a time investment, and that ROI is quickly paid off, especially when you know how fast you can implement and update an already existing system. I'll call out the last 2 points really quick here. They are relevant to manufacturing. It's been cool for me over the years to see a few shops we've worked with where when we first came in, it was simple whiteboards and paper. And then they've transitioned into, these touchscreen TVs and tablets all across their shop floor to run these software applications. But one of the big deterrents in this case, but also one of the things that now makes it more accessible, is being able to implement no code on just about anywhere, whether it's cloud or on-premise. We're not looking at having to also re-architecture the hardware within a manufacturing plant. a simple Wi-Fi or LAN network, as well as some good logic and security protocol practices, manufacturers are up and running with these low-code or no-code applications. And the benefit of this is that they are also web browser based. So we do see some no-code go into the actual app mobile stores. But for those that use them on web browsers, it's so accessible that you're able to jump on to just a web page and now suddenly, access your entire production schedule. This is powerful. It really does bring that the image of the future shop floor into reality, and it's been fascinating to see with our partners that actually come to fruition over the years. I do want to quickly point out, the pandemic and how it plays into digital transformation, because it did provide some very interesting situations, but a lot that were almost unfair and difficult for organizations to keep up with. But we know COVID has brought, and maybe not even brought, but continues to bring different challenges. And for many manufacturers, the pandemic, and not just manufacturers, for many organizations, the pandemic meant new technologies having to be implemented in order to keep up. And whether that meant finding new avenues to reach out to customers or providing them with new buying avenues, whether it meant revisualizing supply chains or somehow, connecting home offices to the shop floor with work from home orders. Manufacturers have a long and very bad history of having disconnected shop floors and front offices. These two areas of manufacturers do not get together or do not play very well together. So there's a lot of data loss that happens. And then when you add the fact that people are now not just in the office, but they're actually in their home office and still trying to, keep up different data processes and protocols with the shop floor. It's definitely become a challenge for manufacturers. Now, those without no-code solutions did find themselves taking on new software vendors, and new software vendors meant new costs, and especially costs being incurred at a time where, and it seems like things have at least seen a bit of stability. But at the beginning of the pandemic, we just didn't know, and incurring those costs was a risk. But no-code development shops, I will point out, did see a mass amount of relief. And this is because they had the ability to rapidly develop applications. And that's what we mentioned what no-code is. The ability to think of an application, and if the logic makes sense, you're able to build and deploy. So during the pandemic, we saw manufacturers launch into different things like screening applications or new customer portals. These things happen fast, right? And it didn't require the involvement of third-party software and vendors and contracts. So again, adaptability is huge, and scalability is absolutely massive, not just in times like this, but in times where technology is advancing at a very, very fast rate. But those are no-code and digital transformation connections. I do want us to take a look at no-code fundamentals and just practical applications that we'll get into. But there's a few very important things that I'd like to call out with, what no-code provides. And the first we've touched on was scalability, but it is accelerated delivery is one of the top fundamentals in no-code. Since it does eliminate the manual process of writing thousands of lines of code, the delivery of an application from scope to launch is dramatically reduced. There was actually another Forrester report that showed no-code development platforms increase development speeds by up to 5 times in comparison to traditional programming. And that's a significant stat, regardless of the size of application being built. A 5-time increase in development is huge, especially when you look at the costs of having traditional developers or the costs of embarking on custom software. So this is important to manufacturers, of course. It means they can develop a minimum viable application to validate their digital workflows and then quickly reiterate that application. This is literally agile development at its absolute best. No-code gives us this ability to get instantaneous feedback from users and update it on the system in real time and redeploy. I've been on no-code shop floors, and I've seen people look at, just small changes that need to be made and put in that request, and literally minutes later, you see that updated on the application. So it's very real. I do want to mention that. It's not something that is out of reach for manufacturers. This accelerated delivery is here. And another bonus I would like to point out is that no-code applications give manufacturers the chance to eliminate bloated software features. I can tell you on my end, it's always tempting to build just anything that comes to mind. But we've also seen a digital maturity in no-code users, in that they're much more likely to focus on building key features that drive their business or drive their message, whatever it is for the organization. So their applications tend to drop all these frills and additional things that software, traditional software brings with it. More often than not on a shop floor, if you see the software, there's a massive amount of features that are just simply not used. And this goes into an issue of data collection problems as well, right? Sometimes these features are used occasionally, and you begin collecting a data pool, and then it's dropped for a few months and picked up again. And it's really, it's affecting manufacturers. It's something that's really hurting the industry from advancing. Now, of course, with accelerated deployment and development, knowing that we can reduce these times, cost savings are obvious. But it's not so much cost savings on the development and deployment. It's also cost savings on the maintenance of the application. And again, I'll call this out. We know the ERP industry, what we see happen very often in these hundreds and $1,000 projects is that an ERP launches with a system that fits the shop floor at the time. All of a sudden, once you get user feedback and going back to the ERP providers, manufacturers end up with costs that are sometimes triple or quadruple what they originally anticipated. And that's because ERP systems, not just legacy, but current pre-built systems, are designed with the systems features in mind, not the real world application. So again, it's almost like in the kind of technology sector, or sorry, education sector. It's almost as if you have a curriculum that's meant to apply to 6 different subject matters. Well, that doesn't work. A curriculum has to be tailored to the subject, and it's no different for software. Software should be tailored and has to be tailored if you really want to advance technology to the actual operations of manufacturers. So again, those are dollar savings. Can't even begin to get into the time savings that you see using no-code, especially in comparison to system upgrades on ERP systems or traditional ERP systems. So again, fraction of the cost, fraction of the time, and it really makes for an interesting open collaboration environment. There's something worth mentioning. A lot of times when we bring up no-code, we do hear blowback from IT developers that no-code is a threat to traditional development, or it seeks to eliminate traditional developers. This is not the case, but we do have to face a reality. Manufacturers have limited resources. They do need technology-driven people to embark on digital transformations, but they can't afford hiring an IT team. And they definitely can't afford hiring IT staff and rolling out custom software. So again, no code is that option for those who don't have a strong foothold in IT to start with their digital transformation without those massive costs of restructuring their technology departments. For those that already have in-house IT teams, and this is where we see true collaboration happen, no code is not used as a replacement, but it really is a collaborative tool. Direct involvement from stakeholders and business units give IT departments such clear directions on what needs to be built. And this is super important. When you have your business leaders who are domain experts in what they do, and they know exactly what benefits or what changes need to happen to streamline operations, having them work and understand IT teams brings about an amazing synergy. And we see that often with our partners. They just get it, right? There's no disconnect between what IT can do and what business units want them to do. And this lines up perfectly with continuous improvement. No code often starts with a single idea for these small and mid-sized shops, grows into a full suite of applications. And these applications grow with the business. Traditional systems, we found they leave manufacturers in something I like to call ERP limbo, where they're stuck using a system, again, that met previous business needs, but it fails in adapting quickly to keeping up with demands. And it's not that it fails in adapting quickly, but manufacturers also don't have the resource to upgrade those programs. So what happens in ERP limbo is you're stuck waiting months to make changes for software, or you simply don't have the budget to do so. And again, no code just solves this. It allows for rapid and agile development. You can improve on your applications, you can improve on new ideas, and you can safely test new ideas. So these are the fundamentals. We touched on user bases. I'll go over this very quickly, but I believe we have a good idea now of who is using no code. Citizen developers. So this is for shops or organizations that don't have a strong IT presence. Typically, applications are managed by stakeholders, built by domain experts, or vice versa, or a combination of both. Again, almost no coding experience is required. I will say a caveat, so we can be realistic here. Depending on the complexity of what you're trying to build, coding experience does help. But there's, unless you're really going above and beyond with what you're trying to do, and maybe going into machine learning or something more advanced that we see on the right-hand side of the screen here with API integrations, you don't need a background in development to launch these applications. A few quick user statistics. 80% of organizations have reported increased capacity in IT departments by using no code. 71% of organizations stated citizen developers increased development by an average of 50% and doubled the speed of delivery. Again, amazing. And just to the last point here, 70% of those surveyed had no experience of coding prior to building. It's a visual application. Again, it's logic. And if you can piece together the logic, you can build what you need. I do want us, and I know we're kind of coming up on time here, I do want us to focus. I think it's important to look at real world examples and use cases. So I'm going to go over these quickly and highlight what this means and how it's helping manufacturers. Because again, I want to drive home the point that this is a real technology that's now being used and can be backed with actual ROI. Data visualization is a huge part of manufacturing. The majority of manufacturers, again, lack any transparency in their data. This is often due to these disconnected processes. We see hybrids of paper, Excel, legacy ERP systems, all running on the same shop floor. You'll have 3 different mediums of data, and somehow it's up to some poor soul to consolidate all of these and deliver a report on business insights. So it's difficult. Deloitte had actually reported, I believe 2019, I believe it was the second most or largest challenge that manufacturers deal with when it comes to Industry 4.0 is data siloing. It's these disconnected data processes. So again, no code helps you fill those gaps, connect those data pieces very fast, and then visualize them in real time. So again, you make rapid decisions on your organization and informed decisions on how to further scale. Again, it's meant to be scaled. We touched on legacy limbo. This also ties into this data siloing. With traditional applications, if you do not have the budget to upgrade, you're left in the dark. And a lot of situations we see is that organizations are in a situation of leave your data until you can afford an upgrade. And we see many manufacturers lose out on business because of this. They get busy, budget does not increase, and you have these big sets of data that are just not being used. So scalability, massive for manufacturing, massive when using no code. Also, no code does fit small business to enterprise ready. It really does allow you to build based on what you need. Something as simple as an attendance tracker, or something more advanced like reporting on line speeds. So the myriad of options you have, whether you're a small business or enterprise, are huge. So this is enterprise ready. This is medium-sized business ready, and it's ready for small manufacturers. And again, it drives home the point that Industry 4.0 is accessible through no-code platforms. To go on what I said earlier, practical applications. I do want to quickly introduce Cohesive, and I'm going to show you some numbers and practical examples. This is actually our own no-code platform. It's built specifically for manufacturers. It does have open workflows for anybody to do anything on it, but we also get to market even faster, or get manufacturers to develop even faster by giving them manufacturing specific workflows that they can manipulate and change. 2 major areas we've seen a demand for no-code applications. Supply chain visualization is number 1, and production visualization. Supply chain, I'm going to go actually into just some statistics from a supply chain visualizer we had built in collaboration with General Dynamics in HCL Logistics. High level, this is a platform that's built in conjunction with Cohesive. It allows them to see the movement of parts in real times. And we're talking about hundreds and thousands of parts being moved. The administrative processes and the work hours in tracking these using traditional manual manufacturing processes have been reduced by such a major amount. They can now see, and we can see in the screenshot here, this is an example that they can track what's going on with their supply chain in real time. They can track exactly where their parts are, and this helps them really plan out their production. I'm going to jump into production visualization very quick as well. So again, supply chain, this is a real-time look at where suppliers are moving, where parts are moving. This involves custom compliance. This is an ecosystem. And it comes down to visualization of data through no code that we mentioned earlier. Product visualization, another major part of visualizing data. Again, manufacturers for a long time had no clue what was going on their shop floor. And to find out took a lot of broken communication processes. We've seen shops now roll out mobile devices where supervisors and shop floor supervisors are updating and making real decisions on production priorities and rush orders, and gaining more revenue just by looking down at their phone and being able to access these applications. Now, the key is not that this mobile technology is new, but this mobile technology is something they've built for themselves. It's very specific to who they are and what they do, and that's what makes it powerful. It's not just software for software's sake. It's software for that specific set of processes. I'm going to jump into actual case studies so we can get an idea of numbers. Again, supply chain visualization, high level, General Dynamics and HCL were our partners on this, shipment tracking, information availability, and really engaging the workforce to use a piece of software that felt tailored to them. We saw a reduction in administration hours, expedited transportation. We saw better business touch points with suppliers, but the numbers are truly what matter. 50,000 hours in warehouse processes have been saved. 9,000 hours in supply chain management hours have been saved. Now we're forecasting $1.35 million in saving. This is the power of tailoring software and being able to do it quickly and fast. The ROI in return is just, it happens at such an amazing speed. With shop floor visualization as well, we've seen very similar feedback. For capacity, we've seen shops increase machine hours or machine capacity hours by up to 25 hours per week. For shops like Unispray, this is huge, especially if you're in the molding industry and you're pumping out part after part. This is a massive part of it. Scheduling, the actual administrative tasks of scheduling have been cut down by about 10 hours per week. They're now able to get to production much faster and make changes on the fly. And maybe the most exciting thing is on-time deliveries. So we're now projecting a 15% increase using a production visualizer on-time deliveries. So again, I do want to wrap it up, and we can open it up to questions if there are any. But I do want to wrap up the main point of this, which is that this technology is available currently. It's accessible and it's easy to get going. And that's what makes it exciting in manufacturing that's had such a long-standing history of being slow to adopt technology. So this could be a true kind of jump and rocket into digital transformation. And again, we've seen the numbers and we continue to see numbers. It is an emerging technology still, but it's hard to argue with the kind of things we're hearing from manufacturers. And that's about where I'll wrap it up here. But I am open to any questions if there are any. But I do appreciate you all listening to me on NoCode. It's definitely an exciting thing to keep our eyes out on.
Thank you, Rami. Can you hear me okay? I lost my connection for a moment.
I hear you there, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Do we happen to have any questions for Rami based off the presentation? We'll give it a moment, see if any questions come in. So we have a question here. how are code-based application companies dealing with that? Are they implementing non-code apps, it as well as a trend?
So, a little more elaboration on code-based application companies. Are we referring to companies that are already launching with software? Or are you referring to actual code-based building companies? So we haven't seen a transition from other software companies into no code. They are seeing the power, but again, it's a massive cultural change, right? There is still that resistance from traditional IT developers as to whether or not this no-code platform is something that's a threat to them. So you do see a bit of hesitancy from code-based companies. That being said, they are using no-code providers to speed up integrations. Yeah, software companies, absolutely. They're seeing the power of it. They're still getting their feet wet. FactoryBucket came from a traditional development background. And again, the reason why we believe in this is that we saw it transition in just how fast we were able to develop applications using no code. So I'm sure software companies will fall in line. They're already using integration no code applications. I imagine this would become more widespread in the coming years, especially in the next 5. Steps to develop abilities for a team to work using no code. It's so there definitely is an introduction to learning how to no code. Getting used to the platform is very quick. Typically, it takes less than a month. What really needs to happen, though, before that, is that your team has to have an understanding of how to solve logical problems based on logic. No code is very much a logic-based approach. Again, if you say, I need this piece of data to talk to this piece of data, you have to map out that trend. So steps that we often recommend to our partners is to always begin with a very clear idea of their processes. And knowing your processes is going to help you visualize exactly what logic you need to put into place. Steps to develop abilities for a team. I hope that answers that. Yeah, it really is just making sure they understand the workflow that they're tackling and the problem that they're tackling. And again, if they do, then it's a matter. Platform is essential. Platform undoubtedly is essential. But again, we're seeing with no-code platforms, the initial dive into it is so easy to pick up. Most no-code platforms do follow the same visual pattern. When you do get into more advanced no-coding, especially when you're talking into IT teams who are integrating, platforms definitely do matter. Absolutely, George.
I have another question. Can regular non-tech oriented citizens learn, work, create with no code software development?
Absolutely, and that's who exactly it's developed for. So manufacturing no code is a bit different. It's very specific, but no code as a kind of movement in technology is meant for non-tech oriented citizens to pick up and learn how to develop an application. Can regular non-tech oriented to learn, work, create with no code? Absolutely. That's who it's designed for. It's designed for people that have no coding experience to put together an application.
I have a question regarding the no code. So often, I've in my experience with no code or low code approach, you often have a what you see, kind of what you get approach with development. Do you find that to be a challenge, or is there any way that I guess where somebody could create more of a tailored application that the freedom of a full development application or coding would provide? Compared to a no-code approach where it's almost a what you see is what you get kind of thing with what is available to you when creating an application.
And that's a very good point, Chad. Yeah, so traditional development does definitely afford you the ability to build from scratch, really whatever your developers can think of. I think in the last, I would say 4 years, now that we've seen all these different no-code and low-code integrations pop up, the communication between these applications just make it so much easier to get into that more advanced development, where it's not just what you see is what you get, right? Companies like Zapier and Integromat, are taking a regular no-code platform and now suddenly giving people the ability to incorporate themselves into Gmail or into Excel. So it's expanding. Does it have, I would say it would continue to expand in the next 4 years. And I think we'll be on the same level as traditional developers. But it will be dependent on the no-code. It will be dependent on the no-code community itself.
I imagine the availability of different integrations in that, and from what I see in no-code approach too, is that it's often presenting the modern, I guess, approaches to development, which makes it also easier for you to ensure that you have a modernized application that you're developing. It's something that's current for the market.
Absolutely right, Chad, and something that we often, and I get the idea that what you see is what you get, but we're finding more and more with no code, it's also what you need is what you get. And as we modernize these apps and we cut out these software bloats, we're just seeing applications that deliver maybe not so much on features, but deliver higher on ROI.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, do we have any other questions possibly for Rami?
And if there are, I'm sure you'll share my information there, Chad, but if anybody has
Definitely.
any other questions or wants to connect on the topic, more than happy to.